Chris Beard has Ole Miss primed for a massive run in the SEC. Don't take my word for it.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast around. I'm your host, Stephen Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media and a former Ole Miss staff member. On today's show, we talk about Ole Miss basketball and the Rebels' run to the Sweet 16 with Ole Miss head basketball coach Chris Beard. We take a look at the international flair to this team and how the analytics have shaped their playing style, especially with Ole Miss being one of the few teams remaining that still embraces the mid-range jumper. We also break down the expanded role for Malik Dia when the new season tips off and how that could be a game changer for this Ole Miss squad. And finally, we talk about season ticket momentum and how Chris Beard is already building an atmosphere that rivals what they have at Auburn with Neville Arena. Remember, we are free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and a special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make this show what it is. Don't forget to check out a second listen on the network. Chris Gordy at Locked On SEC or Corey Burton at Locked On Vandy. They have perspectives on college football and the SEC, and obviously talking noise at Tennessee and the Big Ten. That's what Vandy does these days, and potentially Ole Miss. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Listen, we have Chris Beard on camera for about 20 minutes. We might as well jump right in. Chris Beard, Ole Miss head basketball coach. Let's go. Ole Miss basketball coach Chris Beard joins the program. And coach, after so many players turned over and you got ready to completely rebuild a roster, first of all, is everybody here? And what is your first impression so far looking at them?
Yeah, everybody is not here. We're still waiting for Ilias to get cleared and come over from Europe. The other 15 guys are in Oxford. So we're off to a good start.
So after a Sweet 16 run last year, you had to completely rebuild that roster. Was the international twist kind of intentional on your part, or it just worked out that way?
A little bit of both. We've been committed to recruiting international players for a long time. I think maybe every one of our rosters over the years has had at least one or two international guys. So it's something we're committed to. We've had great players in the past that have opened up doors for us through relationships. Certainly we have international connections on our coaching staff and really with our team. You know, obviously one example would be Klafke being from Brazil. Really helped us and was instrumental in us getting Gusto here. So, we're in the business of finding the best talent we can every year. There's certain places where you can find that, whether it be high school recruiting, the portal, or certainly international, is something we've been committed to for a long time.
How do you do that pitch? How do you convince somebody from Brazil or France that Oxford, Mississippi is the place? Because I've lived in Oxford. It's not particularly close to anywhere.
Well, what do you mean by that?
Memphis is an hour away. It's just kind of separated. It's a typical Southern college town. How do you explain that to somebody from Brazil or France?
Well, I think actually that's one of the biggest assets we have. You know, in my opinion, Oxford is the best college town in the country. I know there's some places that are as good in their own way. But I can't think of anywhere it's a better place to go to college or work or play basketball or go to school than Oxford. So it's really one of our biggest assets. You mentioned we have an international airport in Memphis. It's less than an hour away, depending on who's driving. We got a guy on our staff that can get it done in 45 minutes, so I wouldn't recommend that. But no, I think Oxford kind of sells itself. And then obviously the SEC basketball is what it is. So you know, every international player is not the same. Everybody's kind of looking for something different, but one kind of common factor is everybody's looking to go somewhere where basketball is valued. Everybody's looking to go somewhere where they can play at the highest level, which is the SEC, obviously. And then the academic component at Ole Miss is real too. We have so much variety and diversity in what these guys can choose to study. But yeah, Oxford is one of the first things we talk about with all the international players.
Yeah, back, I guess it was 15 years ago, it was another life. I used to get to the Memphis airport to exchange game tape for the Ole Miss football team in about 45, 50 minutes. I'm well aware of that drive and going up through Holly Springs and hitting. Yeah, it's quick. So one real question, this is just on the thing. It's like in this analytical age, they put up a graphic during the NCAA tournament of like all the teams where they shot from and shots that are made. And they were all 3-point shots and around 4 foot of the basket, except for really your team. I know that you use the 3-point shot, but I also see a bunch of mid-range jumpers. Is that intentional? Is that a stylistic thing? What's going on there?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think above all, we value each player's game. We value each player's talent. And so it's kind of a common conversation in basketball. And I certainly understand analytics, probably not as much as the next guy, but we have guys on our staff that are experts in that. And so, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand an open three is a good shot because it's worth 3 points. We all understand what a layup is. The most high percentage shot in basketball is the dunk. And so we understand shot selection. But for some people, a mid-range shot is a layup. And I think what's really interesting is I think, I watch a lot of NBA basketball, and you think of the GOATs, in my opinion, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, the mid-range game was kind of their staple. So we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. There's been a lot of mid-range shots that have been great shots since the game was invented. So like everybody, we're trying to get the best shot we can. Certainly an open three or a chance at a layup or a drive to the basket or high on our list. But we've got some special players that are really good at mid-range shots. To me, it's a percentage deal. Every guy on our team is trying to shoot 50%. That's kind of, Captain Obvious. We've got some special players along the way because of their talent and their shot selection where we've had some guys that their goal is to shoot 70%. James on our team this year is one of the best field goal percentage guys in all of college basketball. And we want that to continue here. But we also, value, a shot that a guy can make 50, 60% of the time. If it's a mid-range pull-up, a step back, an elbow ISO. We're in the business of trying to get the best shot we can.
And I think it was Kevin Durant that said this. They asked him this. They were having an analytical conversation with him because he was shooting a mid-range jump shot. And they said, that's a bad shot. And he said, no, a bad shot is one you can't make. That's a good shot because I can make it. So it's really interesting because me personally, I'm an old school guy, Detroit Bad Boys back in the 90s basketball. That was kind of my era. So it looks pleasing whenever I see your team playing that way, as opposed to, say, other teams that you see around the country.
Yeah, and I certainly understand other people's philosophies. It's none of my business, but, there's different ways to play basketball. Every year, a different team is going to win the championship for the most part. Sometimes you play through the post. Sometimes you have a dynamic playmaker. Sometimes you have an offense based on just talent and spacing. Sometimes you might see a team that really executes an offense where ball movement, everybody touches the ball. So with our deal, it all starts with the players. We don't recruit players and try to change their games. We recruit players and try to develop their games. We want them to be the most aggressive version of themselves. And then in terms of player development, we're trying to add, but we're never trying to take away, what a guy does best. And it really comes down to percentages to us. It's like I describe to the team all the time, like, here in a few months, November 4th, I believe, we're going to take the first shot of the season. One of our players is going to represent everybody in our organization. We're going to take the first shot of the season. We want that shot to be a shot that everybody believes in. We want that a shot to be a shot that player practices relentlessly over time, every day. And we want that shot to be a shot that we all believe can be made at the percentage we're looking for. Again, 50% on the perimeter, 40% from three, and 80% around the basket is what we strive for.
It's fantastic to hear. As somebody that is just a very casual fan of basketball, talking to somebody that is very into it, it's interesting the way that you take the analytics in a completely different direction. It's just my opinion on that. We'll be back with more from Coach Beard, including how Malik Dia's role is shaping up in 2025. That is coming up next. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That is where Monarch Money comes in. It is your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending into one place, so you stop just managing your money and you start actually building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save a little bit more. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, for half off your first year. Did anything surprise you during the Sweet 16 run last season, going through towards the end? Because starting, I guess, with that three-point shot by Sean Padula against Arkansas, those guys looked pretty locked in.
Yeah, I think for sure, a goal of every coach and every player and every team is you want to be playing your best basketball in the month of March. I mean, that's what college basketball is. And that's easy to kind of sit around and talk about, but it's very challenging because teams go through peaks and valleys. And there's a lot of strategy and a lot of work that goes into that. But I think last year's team executed a lot of things very well. And I think that's one of them. I don't think there's any denying that we were playing really good basketball the last month of the season. And it really started in the SEC tournament in Nashville. Even our game against Auburn, who obviously is one of the best teams in the country, a Final Four team, period, with the best player in the SEC. We played really well that day in Nashville. It was basically a one-possession game. And so even though we walked off the court that afternoon not being a winner on the scoreboard, there was a lot of winning mentality. I thought we proved ourselves. Hey, if we can play with Auburn on a neutral floor, then we could be a real factor in the NCAA tournament. So I give the players all the credit. I thought we were our most aggressive self in the month of March. I was really pleased with that. Surprised, no, because I did have a lot of expectations and just personal belief in our players. I get to see them every day in practice. I know them as well as anybody. But to see them execute on that stage when it matters most was something I'll never forget.
Yes, it was absolutely fantastic. And Malik Dia really showed up in the SEC tournament, the NCAA tournament. And obviously he is coming back. His role might be a little bit different this year because of roster construction, or are we looking at about the same thing?
No, definitely expanded role for Dia. Not to put all the pressure of the world on his shoulders, but we are, truth tellers in our program. The expectations for Dia are off the charts. We expect him to have the best season he's ever had individually in college basketball, and he had a really good year last year. We're expecting him to be a leader. We're expecting him to be one of the best players in the SEC. To get that done, I think consistency, reliability is the whole deal with Dia. We're not talking about talent. We're not talking about past production. We're talking about really consistency. Can he become an everyday guy? Can we get those 5 rebounds every half? Not 1 rebound in the next half, 7 rebounds. Can we get that consistency? He's working really hard on it. I have a lot of trust and belief in him. He's not a finished product, nor am I. He's just continuing to get better every day. But I don't shy away from telling people the truth. No coaching speak here, no fluff. We expect Dia to have a really good season.
Yeah, and last season there was a whole bunch of new players came in, and this year you had to do it all over again. And you got last year's team playing really well towards the end of the season. How do you do it again?
That's a lot of work. It starts with a compass of we know what we want to be when we want to be it. We all feel the urgency every day to get better, but we also understand it's not a sprint. It's a marathon. And so we have a plan here. We're trying to execute on a daily basis, while also kind of keeping an eye on the whole team and where we're heading. I know it's kind of coaches speak, but there's no other way to say it. We're just trying to get a little bit better every day. We're trying to form relationships. I think in terms of returning players, it's easy for people on the outside to look and say, man, those guys have 7 or 8 players back. That would be an advantage. I don't really ever see that as quantity. To me, it's not really about the number you get back. It's about the quality that you get back. And so for us to have Dia and Klafke back that were in the rotation, and for us to have Zach and Max back, 2 guys we really believe in their commitment to the program on a daily basis, that group, those 4 guys, those are the guys that we wanted back. So to me, it's more important to get the guys that you want back, that want to be back themselves, versus, hey, we got 8 returning players. That's not always a victory if you have a larger number of returners. The victory is if you get the right guys back that can improve. So those 4 guys coming back that have been in our program for a year, they're a big part of our team.
In our final segment, season ticket sales are just around the corner, and with Chris Beard at the helm, Ole Miss basketball feels on the verge of something special. Stick around. I have Tim Thomas on my show a good bit. He's a former Ole Miss basketball player. He always talks about positionless basketball. That's kind of something you like to do. And is this roster a little bit better adept and the chance of being a better positionless team as opposed to a big posting up a smaller player around the basket or something like that?
Yeah, I don't know about better. We'll see. It's early. Be a good question for February, March. But I do think that we put a roster together that has a lot of versatility. We've got a lot of guys that can play multiple positions. We've got some length and some athleticism and just some physical toughness this year, which should translate to us being a good defensive team. We got some guys that can switch different positions. On offense, we have a lot of players that can do different things. We're not going to be a team that has to rely on one ball handler or one post-up player or one shooter. I do like the variety in our roster. We like the positionless player. Years ago in recruiting, people would always, kind of recruit against us, saying we don't have the traditional 2 or the traditional 3. Now basketball has kind of swung the other way, where we're kind of popular in that regard. So to me, it always kind of starts in the NBA and trickles down. The NBA used to be a league where there was a huge difference between a 2 and a 3 or a 5 and a 4. But we all know basketball has changed, and we all know it's a dribble, pass, shoot game. The more things you can do on the court as an individual player, the more value you bring to your team. So we've got some guys that fit that mode, and then we've got some guys that we've got to develop into that mode. We got some guys, that they've got the dribble and pass down, but the shot's got to come along. We've got some guys that can do a lot of things, but the ball handling's got to get along. So ultimately, that's our dream one day, is to have a team where we have 8 or 9 guys that are literally all, interchangeable parts. We're not quite there on our roster right now, but with player development over time, we visualize that we could be that kind of team come February and March.
And before I let you go, season tickets, how are we doing on season tickets? And Rebel Nation's pretty excited about men's basketball, which is a pretty rare thing over the history of Ole Miss basketball. You have them kind of going. Anything you want to say to them, and how season tickets going?
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. The first thing is a thank you for everybody in the past that supported our program, buying season tickets, coming to games. I can't emphasize that enough. It's the bloodline of the program in a lot of ways, our student body and our season ticket holders. And so first is thank you. And I've always been a guy that understands that people have decisions, where you put your time and money. It's not like we're the only show in town. And so for people to invest their time and money in supporting Ole Miss basketball, it's a thank you. We're open for business. The ticket office is open right now. The season ticket packages are coming out. I think the renewals start on July 1st, which is right around the corner. But new season tickets are open right now. I would say, and it's not coaching speak, this is the truth. There are a limited number available. We visualize a day very soon, where season tickets will be completely sold out. So anybody that's considering it or thinking about it, I would encourage them to do it now and not later. You wait till football season's over and basketball starts. There's going to be a limited number, if any, available at that time. So anybody that's considering buying new season tickets, now's the time. And then just encourage everybody that had them last year. We hope that everybody renews. and continues to support, the team. And we really appreciate it. We're breaking records here every day. I think last year we had a season program record number of season tickets sold. The challenge continues to be, once the season tickets are sold, to try to get people in those seats every single night. And I really want to thank everybody. The message was strong last year, but I think our season ticket holders know that we're just trying to help. We're not harping on anybody. We know that it's impossible to come to every single game, but it's more than possible for our season ticket holders to take the time and effort on the nights that they can't come to the game and give those seats to Ole Miss Rebels. Let's get Ole Miss people in those seats. But we are going in the right direction for sure. We're trending in the right direction. This third-year team, we're looking forward to taking the next step.
Yeah, and if Ole Miss fans want to look at the journey, just look at what happened at Auburn. Similar style arena, but with that atmosphere now is pretty much second to none.
Yeah, I would agree. Similar size town, arena, and what those guys have done there, we have nothing but respect for. And we're doing the same. I think our growth from year 1 to 2 was real. It was tangible. Everybody can see it. And now the next step is, let's take this from being one of the best environments in college basketball to that next category and make it the best. We got a great fan base. We got great facilities. We got a great student body. And so I think, keeping the expectations high together, there's no doubt in my mind that we can't keep moving the needle.
Chris Beard, the head basketball coach at Ole Miss, thank you so much for joining us. And everybody needs to be in the pavilion this fall and support this basketball team that has a really good chance to be good. Thank you very much, Coach Beard.
Thanks, man. Have a great weekend.
Super thank you to Chris Beard for joining us today, and thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your go-to source for Ole Miss news. We pride ourselves on offering the most comprehensive perspectives. We are the front door of Ole Miss because of you. Your support means the world to us. For your second listen, check out the Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings. Be the fan that knows the most on the rapid changes around college football's landscape. Find the Portal today on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hotty toddy, everyone. And remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you tomorrow.